Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to another one of these discussion videos. With me today I am joined by the one and only TonyFlygon.
Hello.
And today we are here to... this music, the Colosseum music in the background makes it sound like it's a news video. But I guess it kind of is, in a sense. But today we're here to discuss the recent UU suspect test that has gone down. I feel like I'm actually adjusting my voice to go with it too. Where Salamence was actually being suspect tested, and we have the results. Like, what the hell, bro? I would have normally said Salamence has been banned. Guys, Salamence has been banned from UU, and we are here to talk about why that's good, why that's bad for the meta, what we think about that, how that might help the meta. And I think Tony's just going to take the floor, so you could talk a little bit about like why Salamence was banned, or...
Okay, well, first of all, there were 94 voters, and 63 of those voted ban, which is about 2/3 of the total pool of banners, so pretty significantly, convincingly banned. The main reasons for Salamence's ban are Salamence's diversity, and not only that it can do many things well, it can arguably do many things the best in UU. And some of those things go a bit farther than the best, as in too good, unhealthily good for the metagame it's in. And especially a Pokemon that used to be too good for OU, it was always going to be a bit of a balancing issue based in UU. It's been UU for a long time, but I guess UU finally pulled the trigger and Salamence moved up.
Yeah, UU's been doing that actually lately. Like they're slowly starting to get rid of things, or at least suspect things. They feel that way they can move the metagame itself to a better direction. They feel like, what was the last one we did for UU?
Alakazam.
Alakazam, exactly. Yeah, so UU, instead of banning everything at once or having a suspect test once, they're slowly taking the people, or the community is saying, and deciding to test things out. So, as Tony did mention, Salamence was a Pokemon that was extremely good at what it did, whatever role that may be. We're talking as in it was a great defogger, a defensive defogger, as well as offensive defogger, and that was one of the main problems with Salamence as well, is knowing its set. Just because you saw Intimidate doesn't mean it wouldn't be like a Dragon Dance Sweeper or a cleaner like that. Or you don't know if it's running a special attack, you don't know if it's running Iron Tail, like if you're switching your fairies, for example, like Florges, or Whimsicott, which could get Fire Blasted. It would always be able to defog. Its speed made it faster than prominent threats like Nidoking. Haxorus basically at +1, Hydreigon, things like that. It could drop Dracos. And again, it was just a Pokemon that was... Finding out its set was probably the main problem with Salamence as well, because it was so good at what it did, and you had to be in the back. You were basically steps behind. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, Tony. You probably could do it better than me. But you were basically a step or two behind, trying to figure out, okay, is this a Life Orb offensive? Is this a defog variant? Is this going to sweep me with Choice Scarf, Dragon Claw, Moxie boosted? And Salamence just fit so many roles, and I guess you could talk about a few of them if you want.
Sure. First of all, the many roles it does also fit on every type of team.
Yes.
You usually see like staple mons on different types of team styles. Like stall teams have stuff like Blissey and Fortress and those kinds of Pokemon, but they also frequently have Salamence, whereas offensive teams also frequently have Salamence. Salamence is really one of those Pokemon that is so perfect and so diverse and good within its diversity that it's really just splashable on any type of team. And like Joey also touched on, finding out what exactly it's going to do for a team is very difficult. And within that as well, it does everything so well. It's arguably both the best Dragon Dance Sweeper and the best form of hazard control in a single metagame, which is insane.
Both offensive and defensive defogger. Like its set is like, again, defog is just so great, and again, you don't know if it'll be offensive or defensive. So for offense, it gives you a fast defogger that hits hard, and for bulkier or defensive teams, it gives you a Pokemon that can come in on physical attackers, as well as, just because of Intimidate, sometimes you could run Rocky Helmet on it, as well as just a speedy defogger, because a lot of stall teams actually did not run like max defense Salamence. It was just so bulky with Intimidate and some HP. I've seen, I think Piff, a Pokemon is fun, you know, the guy who always uses stall. I've seen him use offensive, not offensive, but speedy defensive Salamence. That way it gives him a defogger, but it also means he doesn't like straight up lose to like Nidoking or things like that. Like Salamence hitting that benchmark and just being the best at agreeing with Tony that it was just a great both offensive and defensive defogger. And I guess you can keep going. My bad, bro.
All good, man. What also helps it, as far as defogging is concerned, is that it actually switches in to some of the common Stealth Rock users as well, like Swampert, Cobalion, Bronzong, and you could just immediately defog Stealth Rock away. So, yeah, that's just great, and you don't have to deal with it. It doesn't, in those scenarios, it doesn't even switch in the Stealth Rock itself, which is like one of its few drawbacks, is that it's Stealth Rock weak itself, which we'll touch on more later. But it's probably the best form of hazard control in UU, or was rather. And like Joey also touched on, it has both offensive and defensive defog, so you can't just take advantage comfortably of it using defog, because switching anything in is still risky, because try and counter Salamence without something like Porygon 2, it's nearly impossible. It Dracos, it Iron Heads Fairy types, it Fire Blasts or Earthquake Steel types. It's so hard to switch in on, and at the same time it just forces a switch, uses defog, and your hazards are gone.
Exactly, and obviously on top of that, and Tony meant Iron Tail, not Iron Head. But,
oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, but obviously on top of that, it has reliable recovery in Roost, which still helps both the offensive variants as defoggers, as well as the defensive variants. Tony mentioned it's weak to Stealth Rock, but as he also mentioned, I just said like 3 times in a row, you come in before Stealth Rock, on the Stealth Rocker half the time. You come in on Cobalion pretty safely. You threaten it with Fire Blast or Flamethrower on defensive variants if you're running that. You defog immediately. It's pretty much a no drawback mon at hazard control. And the reason we say it's the best at hazard control, whether on offense or defense, because it's not like Mandibuzz, which even with U-turn can still lose momentum, because Mandibuzz will allow in a faster Pokemon that can take advantage of that Pokemon. Whereas Salamence, again, you have to be scared about switching into it, but Salamence can still defog safely, because half the time you're going to be switching out versus Salamence. Salamence isn't going to come in versus something that it'll die to, unless it knows it's faster and can beat it down. And also there was the Life Orb offensive set, which again can still run defog as well. Like Salamence is one of those Pokemon that can just fit that move on whatever set it wanted. Draco Meteor, as Tony mentioned, the only Pokemon that could probably comfortably switch in on any Salamence set would be Porygon 2. Because obviously it traces Intimidate, the Eviolite making it bulky, and it has reliable recovery and recover. But outside of that, like you even go out to your Florges and you're 2 KO'd by Iron Tail. You don't know, just because it's Life Orb, it's like Life Orb Fire Blast plus Iron Tail knocks out Florges. There's, again, Whimsicott is another option. Maybe you want to Encore it into Draco, or you think it's going to be Scarf and go for Dragon Claw or Outrage. No, it Iron Tails or Fire Blast you upon the switch. And it was just one of those, it's one of those defoggers that you cannot switch into reliably. It's not a defensive defogger. It can be on a defensive team, but Salamance's stats and move pool is just what pushes it over the edge as a defogger as well. Do you want to talk about, you have anything else to add about that, or do you want to talk about like Scarf sets, Life Orb sets?
Yeah, I think that covers the defog section of it. Well, the main thing is the defensive Pokemon that do switch in on Salamence, you would then possibly defog on the switch to like the Porygon 2s, the Cresselias, the Melodics of the world.
Yeah, they're not ones that would hurt it, yeah.
And then you just switch into those, because they're still passive defensive Pokemon you can switch in on.
Yeah.
Barring maybe a Skull Burn from Melodic could be annoying.
Yeah,
but,
or a potential Ice Beam, but then that's like, they don't roll that too much because Haze is kind of necessary.
They need Ice Beam to beat Salamence.
Yeah, for Ice Beam,
yeah.
Because Salamence, and you need Haze as well on Milotic, just because of Pokemon like Combine, Florius, and things like that. But that's another story, obviously. Yep. Do you want to mention the Dragon End set next, or the Sweeper set?
Yeah, sure. The thing is with Salamence, counterplay for Salamence, and with counterplay I mean not necessarily countering Salamence, but the ability to beat Salamence. So that includes checking it as well, like Mamoswine's Ice Shard or Glalie Ice Shard, and Scarfers that are faster even if Dragon Dances.
You can't switch it.
Yeah, but it's super hard to do that. There's very little options as far as that's concerned, and one of the most common ways of dealing with Salamence is, depressingly so, let something die to Outrage, force it to Outrage something. Zapdos was used for that a lot before it got banned, because you can't Fire Blast or Iron Tail a Zapdos, you kind of have to Outrage. and there's plenty of other Pokemon as well, bulky water types, for example, like Suicune. And you Outrage, then go into your Fairy type, whether it's Sylveon, Whimsicott, or Florges, and you take it out after you dodge almost, essentially, Outrage because of immunity.
Yeah, and again, that's just another mon. Like, that's an example of how a Pokemon, it forces you to sack. Like, for example, as he mentioned Mamoswine couldn't switch in on Salamence. It has to revenge kill it. It was a check. It wasn't a counter. This mon had no counters outside of, again, Porygon. That could take it on, switch into any set. Because a counter is a Pokemon that can switch into any set no matter what and come out on top and deal with the Pokemon effectively. And that would only be Porygon 2 in the tier. As well as the fact that you don't know if it was running Dragon Dance or Choice Scarf. Typically, the thing that would give it away would be you didn't see Intimidate, so that would be maybe a Moxie set. So you might be thinking this thing could be a Scarf Sweeper, like a late game sweeper, because Salamence could do that, and we'll touch more upon that a little bit later. But the Dragon Dance set can also run Moxie as well, especially if it's at full. You Dragon Dance up, you force in something like Florges. You Iron Tail, knock it out with the +1, and then you get your boost, and you have a +2 sweeper going at you. And whereas the Scarf set could also come in, and it's that speed that we talked about a little bit too. It's faster than Hydreigon, one of the probably one of the most common Scarfers in the tier. Hydreigon is great at Life Orb as well, and all that stuff. But I think Hydreigon is the only notable Scarfer that I can think of outside of like Mienshao, which obviously outspeeds Mence. But Salamence just having that base 100. Yeah, Salamence just having that base 100 speed, giving you a reliable late game cleaner or sweeper, even if the team has been weakened. Mence was just so good at doing that. And again, it's all about not being able to know what set the Mence is when it comes out. You see Intimidate, and that doesn't tell you anything at all. You just know that this mon has Intimidate. It's immense. You can fear the Draco, you can fear the potential Dragon Dance, and Counterplay to Dragon Dance is different than Counterplay to Life Orb, I would say.
No, definitely.
Because Life Orb is... you can go.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you don't want to stay in and lose your Pokemon to Draco Meteor, but you also don't want to switch and get Dragon Danced on the switch. You don't want to give it a free Dragon Dance. And that's like the mindset it forces you, because you're not sure which of the sets it is yet, just by it coming in and showing its Intimidate. And it's a horrible feeling if you're later in the game and you're not sure which set it is, and I usually end up staying in just in case it Dragon Dances, and often it happens I just lose a Pokemon to a Draco Meteor because of it, and I don't even regret it, because had I switched and had it Dragon Dance, I probably would have lost.
Yeah. Which
is just insane. How a Pokemon can do both those things, as well as being a stall team's defogger. It's just beyond comprehension, really, how it does everything so well. One thing that's good for Counterplay was to kind of defend those against banning. There were still quite a few people that voted no ban. Stealth Rock is something that really hurts Salamence, and if you aggressively play around it, so predict Salamence to come in and make a switch of your own or go with a coverage move predicting it, Stealth Rock really hurts it. Salamence has a good amount of relative bulk, but that fades a little bit if it comes in at 75% instead of 100%. That's a big difference. And another thing is something I used myself, so I can basically just share this from personal experience. I think Joey's used this mon a lot as well, and that is Mega Aerodactyl's Pursuit.
Yes.
Salamence, it has decent amount of bulk, is not Pursuit weak type-wise, but what Aerodactyl does, if you get in Aerodactyl on the same turn Salamence comes in, you don't get intimidated first, and Stone Edge kills Salamence, so it wants to switch out. It already takes Stealth Rock damage, which means you can aggressively go for Pursuit and get it almost into Stealth Rock range, and in range of like your Conkeldur's Mach Punch or something, and it makes it just much easier to deal with.
Yeah, Stealth Rock was definitely like something that helped with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's another form of counterplay I used myself, especially when my team was Salamence weak, and I felt it was important to aggressively play around it. It happens very quickly. If you put a Sylveon on your team, you're not Salamence proof. Just keep that. That's not how it works. Yeah, so that's something I used, and Aerodactyl has that unique combination of having Pursuit and being faster and being able to OHKO Salamence.
Yeah,
so.
rock type, obviously, as Tony mentioned, that would obviously lead you to be able to set up with maybe like your SD Cobalion, which wouldn't be able to knock out Salamence at 75% with Iron Head, but then, you know, obviously getting off that Pursuit and Stealth Rock, you're able to knock it out after that. So that was a bit of counterplay for Salamence, but again, that forces you to play more aggressive. As well as, what if Salamence stays in and just drops a Draco on you?
Yep, exactly. It's definitely not reliable at all. Or if Salamence doesn't even switch in and you just lose your Mega Aerodactyl because you tried to catch it. It's just... That's just something I did, and I think those desperate measures maybe also kind of show how busted Salamence
yeah, like,
really
wow,
is.
you got to potentially sack one of the best mons in the tier, aka Mega Aerodactyl. And that's not a long shot at all, guys. Mega Aerodactyl is great for UU. It just does so many rolls, but we're not talking about that. Maybe that'll come up later. Who knows? But it just shows how you are forced to play a certain way versus this Pokemon just to not give it the ability to break through your team. I think, what was the other thing I wanted to mention about Salamence? There was the Choice Scarf set, which obviously has the ability Moxie, because Salamence has two great abilities, being Moxie and Intimidate. Intimidate obviously lowering your attack, making it be able to take those physical attacks better, making it a fatter mon with its typing in general, like Dragon just being a solid typing in general, and obviously Moxie as well, giving you that ability to sweep. And again, it's just that the fact that you don't know what Salamence was running, that was so much. That's what Salamence had going for it, I feel, too. On top of its speed, special attack, it's just not knowing what the set was. Like, just because, I mentioned it before, but I think this was super important. Just because you don't see Intimidate doesn't mean that the Salamence itself isn't Choice Scarf. It doesn't mean that it's not Dragon Dance. And, I don't know, I feel like that was so huge in Salamence's case, because just losing a Pokemon to a Life Orb Iron Tail, for example, giving it that boost and giving it the ability to Dragon Dance. I know Coco Loco, for example, in I think SPL, he ran Dragon Dance, Moxie, Salamence, and it was able to clean up late game ridiculously easily in one of his games. Between Intimidate, being able to set up on Arrow as well, and being able to outspeed and beat it with +1 Outrage, and then just cleaning up a game. I think there was a game that went down like that. So just Salamence's ability and typing just have so much going for it. How do you think the meta is going to change with Mence gone?
Well, there's a very... Well, I think other forms of hazard control are going to rise up more. I think Tentacruel will be good.
Definitely. With
it's already good,
yeah,
but it's probably going to be like one of the elite forms of hazard control now. Maybe we're going to see more spin blockers as well, because the best forms of hazard control at the moment would mostly be rapid spin users with Fortress, Tentacruel, Mega Blastoise.
Yeah.
Whereas defoggers have really just been either moving up to OU or getting banned.
Or like their viability just goes down because of what dropped down. For example, Mandibuzz goes down because of Sylveon. Slowik.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
I feel Mandibuzz really needs Taunt. I personally, every time I build with Mandibuzz, I don't even want to run Defog on it. Taunt Toxic is better. But that's besides the point. Yeah, Sylveon is horrible. It gives Sylveon a free switch in, and then you have to switch into a spec Sylveon. Not something people look forward to.
Yeah, resist does not mean live. So.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's insane. Yeah, so there's going to be significant changes, I'd say, and maybe some Scarfers like Mienshao would go down, since there's not something that boosts in the base 100 speed tier anymore.
Yeah.
Although Scarf Mienshao has to hit Stone Edge.
Versus, yeah.
Not the best. I think Shuka Berry users like Empoleon might drop a bit as well.
I can see them running Chopo now too, because whenever, like just for example like that, because I always ran Shuka because of Salamence on my Empoleon, so I could stop a late game sweep and Ice Beam knock it out. But I can see Chopo also rising up too, because a lot of times, for example, this is a little bit off, but I think it does have to do with what we're talking about. If I have Bandit Crocodile, for example, I'll never Earthquake an Empoleon in Salamence meta. I'll always go for Superpower, because it kills them through, obviously, Shuka, since Shuka doesn't take effect right there. So I could definitely see Shuka and Polion going down, especially because the only thing you really need to stop would be Salamence. I guess to the rare extent Haxorus, which could also rise up in usage as well, with its main competitor as a Dragon Dance user being gone, Salamence. And there's like, I could not see a reason to use Haxorus over Salamence. I guess outside of Poison Jab, Mold Breaker, or something like that. But I could definitely see Haxorus going up as well. Or potential Dragon Dance Haxorus anyway.
Speaking of elite Dragon Dance users that benefit from Salamence going, Gyarados is also one of those Pokemon.
Agreed.
I saw someone post on the forums as well that Salamence is the only commonly used Intimidate user that actually resists water. And Salamence is actually a great switch into Gyarados because it just takes Waterfall and then just Draco Meteors. And if it Dragon Dances, it would then have to bounce, and it's just not a great situation. And you take as Stone Edge too, even if it Dragon Dances because of the aforementioned Intimidate. So it's just a great Pokemon to switch in on Gyarados. You can't do that anymore. Plus, a Pokemon like Whimsicott used to Encore Salamence in a Dragon Dance and take advantage of Locked in Outrage will be used less now, which is also good for Gyarados. And the overall speed tier of boosting Mons will maybe also drop, which is also good for Gyarados. So
yeah, Gyarados definitely a mon that I could see that just benefits so much from the Salamence ban. The Whimsicott is actually really interesting. I feel like obviously Whimsicott's role was a bit different than Sylveon. Sylveon hits hard, also be a Wisp Passer, whereas Whimsicott can Encore you into something, can priority Stun Spore with Prankster, but also be a fast Fairy type that obviously deals with Ments as well as like Hydreigon. But I could definitely see that going down, especially with having competition as a Fairy type or an offensive Fairy type in general with Sylveon, which again helps Gyarados a lot. So definitely Gyarados being a threat is something I could see rising. I could also see, as Tony said, Spin Blockers rising. In particular, I could see the Blade coming back more. Just because Salamence was one of those offensive checks on offense itself. Like, offense actually does not have much for SD to Blade outside of like when Salamence used to intimidate it and knock you out with Life Orb, Fire Blast. So the Blade definitely appreciates, especially because if you EV it right, it won't be 2 KO'd by Sylveon's Hyper Voice. Well, Specs is another story. But
my problem with the Blade is that the most commonly used pursuit or rapid spin user will be Tentacruel,
which
and
Scald
Tentacruel
burns.
Click Scald, exactly, and that's
yeah.
just the Blade hates Scald. It
Yeah.
hates Scald, and it doesn't do much back. You're gonna pretty much have to run Shadow Claw, I think.
Yeah.
Sacred Sword is not gonna be enough because you need to like Sacred Sword plus Iron Head is both resisted, so you'd have to like Shadow Sneak. And Tentacruel takes Shadow Sneaks comfortably, whereas Scald is a nightmare for Deblade. So as soon as you see a Deblade on the other team and you're a Tentacruel, you just repeatedly click Scald.
Yeah, it was definitely a pivot, but more so, maybe not as much as a Spin Blocker itself, but just as maybe its own sweeper, something.
Yeah, no, Deblade is good for sure. Don't get me wrong. It's just not good versus Tentacruel.
Yeah, I know. Tentacruel is nasty, and Tentacruel definitely benefits so much from Salamence. I mean, Tentacruel was already rising in popularity due to its obviously poison typing, resisting Acid Spray, T-Spike, Scald, Rapid Spin, all that. Tentacruel has so much going for it. And it just appreciates more that Salamence is gone. I guess it helps. I think it, I don't want to say it makes team building more creative in a sense, because people will probably still use their cookie cutter Mega Arrow, Balance, or dump Tentacruel on the team with maybe Empoleon, Crocodile, and things like that. I think Crocodile really also appreciates Salamence being gone, since it's able to spam knockoff without Intimidate going on. I know a lot of counterplay to Crook was either a faster mon like Salamence, dropping Dracos, getting off the Intimidate. I know during a lot of tournament matches that I ran into Crook and I used Salamence, I would just roost off the damage from the knockoff, and then later on knockoff would obviously do less because my item's already gone. But I think Crook really appreciates something that can block Intimidate, especially potentially Whimsicott going down, so an immunity to Earthquake, a resistance to Earthquake as well as Dark going down. I think Crook appreciates that a lot, especially with Tentacruel and usage. Not that I can switch in, but obviously you can OHKO Tentacruel after being able to
Also
switch
a good
in.
partner for Deblade because it scares out Tentacruel and then hits it hard with Pursuit.
Banded Pursuit, yep. Yep.
and that makes Shadow Sneak a lot more potent versus Tentacruel than it would before, meaning you can block spin more easily.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add about Mence?
I guess I could quickly wrap up the main reasons for the ban to have like an overall view.
Yeah.
I would put it in like 3 reasons, and those combined are basically how you can describe Salamence and its overpoweredness in UU. Its Dragonant set is arguably the most terrifying sweeper in UU. Its Defog sets are arguably the best forms of hazard control in UU, especially considering it switches in directly on common Stealth Rock users like Swampert, Cobalion, Bronzong, etc., and just immediately defogs away. Its all-out attacking sets are ridiculously hard to switch in on, especially because of the coverage moves. Steel types and Fairy types resist or are immune to Dragon type attacks, but still lose. Barring very few Pokemon like Porygon 2 and Corselia, Melodic, Umbreon maybe, or Suicune with Ice Beam could beat it. Suicune is not great because it forces to rest, and then you get to switch into other broken things like Celebi, and and those things combined, without knowing which one of the 3 it really is beforehand, is the main reason it's banned. It's too diverse and too elite within its diversity in everything it does. And you don't know what it's going to be when you see it in Team Preview, and you still don't know what it's going to be when it switches in and lowers your Pokemon's attack stat by 1 stage.
Exactly. And yeah, I think that wraps it up about Salamence. So obviously you guys can give your thoughts down below. I'll leave a link to the thread as well as Tony's channel if you guys want to go ahead and check him out. He has been uploading a lot more frequently, man. 2 uploads this year? Whoa. 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 But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed, of course, and we'll be back sometime in the future. Also, I'm not gonna upload it on I'm not gonna upload one on my channel, but but Tony did a video on Tauros, which actually remains in UU, or NU, excuse me. The NU suspect test ended for Tauros already, but Tony did a video about Tauros prior to the NU suspect test ending. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, it's on his channel. Go ahead and subscribe to him. And that's going to be it, guys. Goodbye.